Okay. Thanks everybody for coming. I know all of you have already seen a lot of this beginning Niagara River Greenway stuff, so we will probably go through it fairly quickly. The purpose of this meeting really was to answer any questions about the Environmental Ambassador Summit that we're having in February, and then also to introduce you a little bit to the Youth Stewardship Program, which I know a lot of you already know about, but we'll just touch base really quickly on that. And we invited Claudia here because they are a subcontractor on our grant that we're working on in the greater Tonawanda areas, and also a very big partner in a lot of the programming we do through Youth Stewardship. And these pictures here of these lovely smiling faces are some of the kids that are all in our Youth Stewardship Program from various schools. We got Kenmore West there, Niagara Wheatfield, and Riverside High School doing all of their great work. Okay, so today we're just going to talk about just a quick introduction to Niagara River Greenway, quick introduction to Youth Stewardship Program, and then more details about the Environmental Ambassador Summit coming up this winter, which we are very excited about. Then I'm going to turn over to Waterkeeper. Claudia is going to talk about all the great work they do and the reasons why we're doing all this great work. Talk a little bit more about the Niagara River watershed and some of their experiences through volunteer opportunities they have there, and also the great resources they have to offer. So what is the Niagara River Greenway? If you look over at the right-hand side, you'll see a picture of the Niagara River corridor that's highlighted in red, which I know a lot of you have already seen this already. But this is the area we focus on, and we're trying to make a world-class corridor of places and parks and green spaces and waterways where people can get out on the water, do kayaking, swimming, fishing, and also hike and bike and do any kind of outdoor recreation around the water. So we're working hard to make sure that the green spaces and the waterways are ecologically healthy. On top, and that which also makes them more beautiful, right, with greater biodiversity. We do this by offering all kinds of programs and looking for grants. Can you guys see me moving around the people as I'm moving that, or just see the screen? Okay, good. I'm just making sure. Okay, so the purpose of this, as I was saying, is to also connect communities to each other and connect the communities to the waterfront and create a continuous habitat. And we do this through multiple ways, and we count the youth stewardship as one of the ways we do that by getting the kids and the teachers and the community involved, getting outside, doing projects to help the water and the green spaces be more clean, and also creating a continuous bike path that goes from Lake Erie to Lake Ontario, which we are almost done with, so that each community can actually bike to each community and creates that better connection. So here's some more pictures of the great work that our kids are doing. We have Riverside, Niagara Wheatfield, and North Tonawanda here doing all kinds of projects that we've engaged them with. And the goals of the Youth Stewardship Program really is to get the kids learning more about their environment, some of the issues they have that we should be concerned about now and in the future, and what they can do to make those issues better. It's developing community connections by working with partners like the Rotary Club, as you see down below. It's a great mentoring opportunity because they're working side by side with these older adults in the community. When they're kids in high school and they may be looking for internships, it's a great opportunity to find connections in areas where they might be interested in getting internship or even job opportunities. We're hoping they're going to gain a better appreciation for sustainability and their responsibility of trying to maintain the environment in a healthy ecological state, and why that's so important. And above all, we want them to like being outside. I mean, there's loads and loads of research of why being outside is beneficial for mental health and physical health, and with all the anxiety that's been going around past few years, I think this is a great time to get these kids outdoors and really appreciating what the outdoors can offer for them. Some of that I just touched on with the benefits of the Youth Stewardship Program. And you know, studies also show when kids are outdoors, their test scores actually can increase. So I mean, there's a win-win for everybody getting outside. It makes your environment more beautiful and healthy, makes the kids more beautiful and healthy, and it makes the grades more beautiful and healthy. No, but seriously, there's no reason I don't think why kids shouldn't be outside working. If they have an opportunity in their classroom or after school, it'd be a great way to get out and working. And not to mention, you can also gain actual practical work experience by doing project management planning and developing timelines and budgets and that kind of things that they may not be doing in regular classroom setting. And also, I just wanted to point out that we do work with the teachers to make it easy for their curriculum, fit their schedule. We don't want to interrupt anything that's going to make their world harder. Now, we do rely on many partners to help us do this program. We're a very small organization, and all these groups here have committed or are willing to help come into your classroom, do special guest speeches or hands-on activities. And I do have a little booklet that explains a little bit more about each of these organizations, and you can learn more and call me. I can connect you and we can work on a project together. So that's a really quick intro to Youth Stewardship Program. The Environmental Ambassador Summit, brand new this year, because we got this funding through the Tonawanda grant. We're really excited about it. I think it's going to be really fun day for the kids, and also a great learning opportunity for them to learn about the organizations in our local area, what they're doing to help the environment, learn about schools and colleges and if they're interested in this area, what they can do in them, and also get just great presentation experience. So I think you should have all gotten a flyer that explains what we're actually going to do on the day of the summit, which is February 9th, 2023. The first part of it, we're going to have the kids come in and go through a cycle, like little station where they're going to go through every maybe 15 minutes and hear a 10-minute speech from each environmental organization. And on that flyer, there is a list of the participating organizations. Like Waterkeeper is going to be there, Land Conservancy, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, New York State Parks, DEC. There's probably some others that I'm forgetting. I'll look on the flyer. And then after that, they'll also be able to talk to some of the colleges and universities about their programs to see if that's something they'd be interested in pursuing after high school. And then from there, we're going to go to lunch. And during lunch, we're going to be hearing from 2 keynote speakers. I'll talk a little bit more about them after this slide. And then from there, we go right to the student poster and oral presentation session. So we'll have one room where the students are going to be bringing in they'll bring their posters with us, and we'll help them set it up. We'll probably take the posters and put them in the room. And they're going to go buy the posters. And as people walk around, you can talk about the posters and hear about them. And the posters are really a way for the kids to visually portray what they want to do with their projects. The written application narrative portion is more like the nit and gritty of it, actually explaining what they want to do with the timelines and the budgets and all that. The poster is more fun, more visual oriented. The oral presentation is a way for them to talk about the presentation and also answer any questions that we'll have an expert panel of judges there who'll be talking about or who'll be listening to the presentations and not ask questions if they need any more clarification on the narrative, because they'll be able to read those before they actually see the oral presentation. So as they're doing the student posters, they'll have time slots where they'll know they have to report to a certain smaller room where the oral presentations will be given and the experts will be listening to them. And we'll have lots of giveaways and opportunities for the kids to learn. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Great opportunity. The keynote speakers during lunch are Helen Toledo and Josh Konowitz. Helen is, they're both become recommended by teachers and from people in the field working with organizations. They are very upbeat, positive, have a lot of experience in environments and working with communities, and the fact that they both are very engaged with volunteering themselves, I think is a great role model for the kids. And they have, I think they can learn a lot. They're going to talk about how they got to where they are, why they chose this path, you know, and help the kids decide when they're trying to make decisions about what they want to do in the future. Because we're anticipating a lot of the students who are coming to this are ones that are interested in this field, who are possibly considering getting into it long term. So these people will help them maybe clarify that, whether they'd like to go further in this field or not. And then I think you should have all gotten a proposal, application, and presentation. If not, I can send it to you, and I can create a link to on our website so you can find it. But I'm not going to read through the whole application, and I was hoping that this would be a good opportunity to people ask questions if they had a chance to look through it and wasn't sure about what, you know, certain criteria that we're expecting or not. Just ask away and we can answer those questions. But I just do want to point out the applications are due January 9th. Just email to me, and projects need to be, the projects that are proposed actually need to be completed by the end of 2023. And everyone will get $1,000 to participate in this. Every school will get $1,000 to participate in the summit, with a possibility of getting $500 if they win the grand prize. And I do want to keep in mind that these projects can potentially be combined with the Youth Stewardship Project. So we have funding through the Youth Stewardship Program and Tonawanda Community Environmental Benefits Fund to do other projects well above the $1,000. So if you want to tag on to that and just make it a bigger and better project, there's no harm in doing that. You can. So I'm just going to pause here before Claudia takes over and see if anybody has any questions about the application or the day of the summit. Feel free to put it in the chat. And no. And I know there's a possibility that you might not have a chance to look at the whole thing yet, but if you do come up with a question in the future, please don't hesitate to send me an email or give me a call, and I will be happy to answer it.
I was just going to ask Michelle about having the students, like when they're coming up with a project, what are ideas with that? Is there a way to go about them kind of constructing a project on their own, thinking about like what makes a good project for them to go about doing?
Okay, that's a good question. And actually, Claudia is going to touch base a little bit on some project ideas. But I mean, if you look in the application too, there are some project types that we are suggesting that actually are covered by the grant. So somewhere definitely in one of those types would be required. The other, you know, we leave another one because we may be not thinking of something that's falls within the guidelines of the grant. But the whole idea of what the Tonawanda Community Environmental Benefits Fund wants to do is make Tonawanda greener, healthier, ecologically, and also beautify it. So anything that kind of does all of that, I think would fit the bill. But also, we're also looking to educate. I mean, if there's something that can help educate community members about the importance of this, I think that would fall in line too.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Josh, something I want to talk about a little bit more during my presentation too is this idea that the students, right, can investigate a problem that they see in their community themselves. That's a really big piece of the educational component, is them, you know, making plays here in the Niagara River watershed, understanding where they live and why it's important, and then just thinking about issues that they might have noticed or they might want to address through this project, and how they can really go about that investigation and problem solving to end up at a place where they have a project that fits the bill for this opportunity for funding. And I'm also going to mention at the end a lesson series that we've created that actually helps guide educators and students through several different activities that will, I think, really be helpful when you're thinking about how to help students do that investigation and project planning.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're gonna hand it over to Claudia now, and she's gonna talk a little bit more about Waterkeeper and the reasons why we're all trying to do these great efforts.
Thank you. Oh, and it says I can share my screen. That's awesome. I'll pull it up. It's great to be here with you all today. I hope you're doing okay at the end of the school day. Probably a little tired. I won't take too much of your time, I promise. I am really excited to be a part of this project, to be talking to you today, and I'm going to touch on two main things, right? The first thing I'm going to talk about is just kind of bring us back out and talk a little bit about why we're doing this, why we're all here, why it's really important and exciting, and a little bit about that education component, what we really hope your students are going to get out of this program. And then I'm also going to touch on some resources. So I know we talked a little bit about it just now, and Michelle mentioned, you know, students are going to be coming up with a project, and they're going to be doing that project planning. And I really want you to leave with the sense that you're not alone. There's lots of folks here that can help. We've got lots of resources, and we're really excited to connect with you and your students as we kind of work together on this Youth Stewardship Program and the Ambassador Summit. So, hi, my name is Claudia. I work for Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper. I'm also here with Sandy Smith and Emily Diet. They're also on the call. They're both from Waterkeeper. You might meet them as we're working together on this project this school year. So really quickly, if you haven't heard of Waterkeeper before, we are a partner with the Greenway. We are a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to protect and restore water and surrounding ecosystems in the Niagara River watershed. So we do a lot of different types of work, from big habitat restoration projects to youth engagement and education projects. So really lots of different things here in the Niagara River watershed. And this project really falls under that pillar there. We connect people to the water. So through youth stewardship, we're hoping to help build the next generation of environmental stewards. Okay, so I figured I could start with kind of setting the scene and taking a moment to reflect on where we are. So you are all educators in one of the most special places in the world. We are here in the Niagara River watershed, and that's what this map is showing. And the Niagara River watershed is just, it's a really exciting place and a great place to teach. Can you guys see my screen after I clicked that link here? Or are you still seeing my PowerPoint?
Still PowerPoint.
Let's see if I can get you to see. I clicked the link and I think it's going to be cool. Okay, so this is a really cool tool that you can use in your classrooms if you're ever interested. I'm happy to talk more about it. It's called ArcGIS Scene, and it's really just like a map making software. And so I made this map to help us think a little bit about where we are and why it's so important and exciting to be working with students in this area. So the Niagara River watershed, where we're located, is connected to the Great Lakes Basin. When you take a look at it on this global scale, you'll really get a sense for how large the Great Lakes Basin is. It is about 20% of the surface fresh water on this planet. That is astounding. It's a really, really important resource. We can scale in and start to think about the Great Lakes themselves, right? There are 40 million people that get their drinking water from these lakes. And that's really special and really important and something that we all need, right? Clean drinking water. So again, scrolling in and zooming in to the Niagara River watershed. So this is where we are all working and living and teaching. This is where our students all live. We are a part of that Great Lakes Basin, right? This orange line on the map is showing the Niagara River watershed itself. And then we can scroll in even more. I like this map because it shows some of the tributaries, right? So even if you're not directly on the Niagara River, you're a part of this watershed. And what you do, whether for good or for bad, what you do in the place that you live impacts those 40 million people that live throughout the basin. So that's just something I wanted to show. This is Skajackwada Creek, one of our main tributaries, and I know a location where several of the teachers on the call today work. And Skajackwada Creek is a great example of a tributary to the Niagara River. Okay, so thank you for letting me show you my super cool map. I just wanted to take that moment to show that with you today. And then I'll go back to my slides. And yeah, any questions on that? No? Here's another map of our Niagara River watershed. This is a great tool to use with your students. Again, thinking about that concept of placemaking. Where am I in the watershed? How am I connected to those other people that live in my watershed? So I just put some stars. I'm calling in today from the Orange Star in the city of Buffalo at Waterkeeper's offices, but I'm connected to Niagara Falls, right? Even though it's 30 minutes away, we're connected via our watershed. So encourage you to think about where your star would be on this map. And I've mentioned it a bunch of times, this program and the education that you're going to be doing with your students is really rooted in this concept of a watershed. We all live in a watershed. We're all connected by that watershed. And I think that's just such a great connection to make when we're starting to talk about stewardship. In addition to that beautification piece, right? We can make it look prettier here. We can help the plants and animals here, but also what we're doing isn't going to stay here. It's the impacts of it are going to travel far and wide because we're all connected. I also wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge that the Niagara River watershed is the historic land of the Haudenosaunee, which means the people of the Longhouse. And so I wanted to acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land and water. And I think we can learn a lot from our Native neighbors and their knowledge of how to be great stewards for this planet and our amazing waterways, right? Our lakes and our rivers and our creeks. This is a really cool map explorer tool. If you click that link, you can explore all the historic and current territories of Native peoples in the United States and Canada. Okay, so talking about the Niagara River watershed, I also wanted to mention what makes our watershed special. One, I've talked about it, we're connected to that Great Lakes Basin. We're connected to those 40 million people that drink their water from the Great Lakes, but we also have all of these things that make our watershed special. Michelle talked a little bit about the Greenway. That is a world-class corridor of places and parks and landscapes. There's some really amazing parks that are nearby all of your schools that people travel from around the world to go to, and we're just so lucky to have them in our backyard. The Niagara River is also a globally significant, important bird area, which means that the Niagara River and its shorelines provide habitat for certain species that are of global significance. So, for example, the seagull in this picture here, over 20% of that species' entire worldwide population has been found along the Niagara River in a single day. So if you can imagine 20% of all humans hanging out in a specific spot, that would be a really important spot. So that's how I think about the Niagara River and why it's so important for birds and wildlife. It's also a Ramsar wetland of international importance, and it's home to a bunch of great natural and cultural resources, habitats, animals, plants. So these are all things to think about when you're introducing this project to your students and starting to think about what projects to do, this is really where you can ground it and kind of bring it home with this larger context of why it's so important. These are some of the things I mentioned when I was looking at the map, just to bring them home even more. Drinking water to 40 million people throughout the Great Lakes, and Western New York itself is home to over 1 million people, which is really, really cool. Most of us get our drinking water from the Niagara River, so. Okay, so now thinking about a little bit with youth stewardship. One of the things that make me really excited to work with students with this project is it presents an opportunity for many of them to have their first meaningful watershed educational experience, which you guys might have heard about before, I'm sure. It's called a MIWI, and it's really an opportunity for students to first build a connection with their local environment, to build that sense of place, and then to start to do some problem solving, right? Whether it's investigating a local creek, maybe it's Skajakwita Creek. They might do something like a macroinvertebrate study where they go and they see what critters live in the creek and make some observation and hypotheses about how healthy the creek might be because of what critters they find. They might also go out for a walk and start to identify some of the plants that they find and start to think about whether they're native or invasive and really thinking about the habitats, right? So that's kind of investigative thinking. They're outside, they're thinking about that, and then they can really start to work together on the problem solving component and building a project, which I think is really cool. They get to not only think about environmental issues in their community, but we're also giving them the power and the money, the funds to actually make a real change, which doesn't happen often in a student's life, I think, where they get to actually make a real and lasting impact in their community. So that's something I'm just really excited for. And lastly, I'll just mention, you're not alone. There's lots of things we can do to help. We're here and excited to help as you're working with your students through the Youth Stewardship Program, getting ready to submit a project for the Ambassador Clinic. The first thing that we can do is Waterkeeper, we have a team of environmental educators. We've got lots of different field trips that we can plan with you and for your students. Everything from kayaking to in-class presentations, activities. We're planting some native seeds there in that center picture, to even going outside and doing that macroinvertebrate study that I mentioned before. So please think of us when you're thinking about planning your curriculum for this next year. You know, please consider us for a field trip. We'd love to meet with and connect with your students. And through that, we can integrate a lot of the project planning and stewardship ideas and thoughts and start to plant those seeds so that they can be set up well as they continue to do that. Another thing we have to offer is we've got lots of volunteer events. Several of them have actually been reserved for this program. So if you want to bring your students to a volunteer event, please let me know. We would love to have them. We've got everything from a tour of a restoration site that we can take kids on. We can do a litter cleanup that involves a data collection component. And then we can also do actual plantings, right? So we've got a program here at Waterkeeper called Restore Corps, where we go out to our habitat restoration sites, we bring volunteers, and we do adaptive management work. So that's a really great learning opportunity, especially if you're thinking and your students are thinking that they'd like to do some type of pollinator garden or green infrastructure planting. If you come to one of those events, it's a great time to learn some of those skills. And I think it will really benefit their projects. And then last but not least, we have a lesson series. Please, I really encourage you to check this out. This was built for the Youth Stewardship Program, and it was built really to walk your students through exactly what we kind of talked about today. You know, where are we? This watershed concept. Why is it important? Why is the Niagara River watershed important? And then there are several lessons in there for investigation, thinking about issues and solutions, and it's all very localized. It's local context here in the Niagara River watershed. And then finally, there's several lessons on stewardship, right? So the very last one is all about designing a stewardship project. There's activities that you can do in the classroom or outside with your students to brainstorm and plan a project. Yeah, so these are all lessons and activities here. Several of them can be done outside, right? If you wanted to take your kids on a field trip and you needed something to do with them while you're outside. But there's also things like homework, videos, in-class activities. There's really just a ton in there. And I really encourage you guys to check it out. I think it would be a great resource for you as you're working on the Youth Stewardship Program. And that's all I got. One last thing I guess I'll mention. This picture on the right-hand side of my screen here, this is just an example of the front page of one of the lessons. And you'll notice there's some teacher information in there. So even if you didn't want to teach one of these lessons, but you wanted to learn a little bit more about the topic, there's some links and more information. But there's also learning outcomes, and there's a connection to each lesson to the science learning standard, the next generation learning standards. So that's just something else to consider and to check out when you're thinking about how to build the Youth Stewardship Program into your teaching for this year. And with that, I'll stop talking and I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll look at all your beautiful faces. Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Claudia.
Yeah.
Sandy, since you're here, do you want to say anything about your experiences at Nichols and as a teacher and doing all this great work for years and years?
Well, it's nice to see a couple Nichols folks. Hi, Josh. Hi, Lori. So, I spent quite a while at Nichols teaching through the context of water and water resources and the Great Lakes Basin, and as Claudia so eloquently described, the Niagara River watershed. And I think that I think Claudia did an amazing job centering us in this idea of place, right? And why place is so important, and why teaching through the context of place really kind of helps connect kids to scientific principles through the context of where they live, right? And I think fundamentally that creates stewards, not just who come out and show up and do things as a one-off, right? But really are committed to and fundamentally connected to their place, but also able to understand a lot of these really cool principles of history and science and math and all kinds of different things through the lens of where they live. So I love that whole idea of like blowing it up to thinking about the Great Lakes as a function and the Great Lakes Basin as a function of our planet, right? And then thinking about how as we sort of zoom in, right, we really find out and see how connected we really are, and how everything that we do in that watershed matters. And yeah, I'm super excited. I think this is a great project. I'm really excited to be on the Waterkeeper team and be a part of this as an extension of that. And so yeah, super excited. Great job, Michelle and Claudia. That was great.
Thanks, Sandy. All right, guys. If anybody else doesn't have any questions, I think I'll call an end to this meeting. And then, like I said, I think you all have my contact information. Please email me, call me if you think of any questions as you're filling out the application, or the students come up with questions and you don't know how to answer. Please reach out to me. And we can get some great projects and field trips lined up. Okay. Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone. Great to see you.